If you're watching the video after the fact, this might be a little bit confusing, and note the podcast will be beginning very, very shortly.
Fun fact about that, Brian, I discovered after it has rendered, you can then edit out the intros.
Well, I'm
I
going to have to start doing that and being a real professional. All right, guys, let's run this intro. Let's run this mother. Welcome, everybody, to CrystalCore Radio, Episode 9. Joining me today, a legend among men, Comicstorian, a.k.a. Benny, a.k.a. Comicstorian Gaming, rebranding from Eligible Monster, joining the podcast today. Benny, dude, how have you been? What's been going on with you?
Not too much. COVID made me become like a super gamer.
Oh.
Because I'm just sitting in the house all day playing video games all day.
Oh, no. It's so
like,
funny. It's like I've been training for this in my entire life.
Well, it's funny because I've been doing the YouTube, Twitch stuff now for almost 7-8 years at this point.
Congrats.
So my life for this period has been like travel probably about twice a month on average. So I never really got too dedicated into a lot of the games I was doing. Everything outside of the story I'm going to tell, the Savage group I was with, was pretty much non-existent. It was the Savage group, and then that was all I ever got to really do for gaming, and then the occasional AAA title. So I really didn't get to do much gaming outside of Final Fantasy rating, because of YouTube and Twitch. But since we can't go anywhere, like I can do the without travel, without meetings, without people calling me. It's like a 3-hour workday for the longest time.
Man, that sounds awesome. Guys, hit that subscribe button. I'd like to get somewhere in the closeness of 1 million. Like you're at 2 or 3 million subs on Comicstorian.
2.3. Yeah.
That's incredible. And then you're coming up on 200,000 for Comicstorian Gaming. Guys, be sure to go check. His links are in the description below. Fantastic content creator. I shouldn't have to be the one telling you this, but if this is me introducing Benny to you guys, well, I am honored and thrilled. Now, we're working towards our goal here with this podcast channel to get to 1,000 subscribers. So feel free, if you're listening and you feel like we've earned your sub, to hit the subscribe button. Come back for more podcasts, of which we like to talk about video games. This one being kind of in the Final Fantasy-esque nature of it. So the big part of this topic is going to be the raid scene. You and I were actually having this conversation offline, and then I think you were like, we should totally podcast on this because this could be a very charged topic, depending on your perspective. And so just kind of a note, we're going to be speaking about our opinions, our experiences with the raids themselves. Obviously, everybody can have their own experience with that and more, but just kind of bear in mind this is going to be from two, married guys who've got, their own careers that we've got. And how we try to break into the raid scene itself. So, Benny, why don't you go? Yeah, go ahead, please.
I was like, my story's from the last year of trying to get effectively into an effective Savage rating tier. Like from sitting down last July and going, I want to be current on Savage, because after Binding Coil of Bahamut back at 2.0, Bahamut, that's how I say it.
Yeah, exactly.
The Binding Coil of Bahamut, I quit rating because I was like, there's no end goal. We get the gear. People are able to get more casual gear through the tomes. Yeah. It really doesn't matter what you do with Savage.
And every 6 months, it's kind of like reset it and go from there.
Exactly. And it's like, why put all that extra time and effort in if the only goal is to get the gear ahead of everyone? Because in 6 months, everyone's going to have it anyway.
Yeah.
And I've never been one who's for I want to be first to something.
Yeah.
I've always got the mentality of like, well, you can spend a week working on that and be first. And if it takes me an extra month, but I did it for an hour a day, okay. Like, I'm fine with that.
It's like easy peasy.
Yeah, exactly. So, but this has been my overall experience. And I feel, and this is going to sound weird because I know that this is a taboo thing. And that's why I've like all the research I've now done and the money that I've spent. There's a paywall to getting into an effective Savage group at this point.
Okay.
Of the caliber that I'm looking for is what I should say. Mm-hmm. Okay.
There's a market here, right? That it's like, okay, because anybody could counter that and be like, well, of course you could do all this. But the question is, it's what Chris and I have talked about numerous times. It's like, what is your time worth?
Yes,
and so at some point, there's some point in your life, and it's not right now, because like when we talked about COVID, like I'm mowing my yard again, I'm doing all these things again. Work is, like we've lost hours, so it's like, here's the new normal. Okay, well, I'm mowing my yard again. Not a problem. It's just that was a luxury that I was able to work while somebody else mowed my yard, and I was able to make more than it cost somebody to mow. Now,
Right.
that is not the case. I've got extra time. So,
Right, which is why I think I got into the situation I'm in now, which
Yeah.
for the record isn't a bad situation in my opinion at all, but that I've kind of gone down this route. So I guess I should just, for the sake of the viewers, start at the beginning of what I wanted to do.
Please do.
So for those who don't know, I do run the Comicstorian channel. I also run a Twitch channel. I have a staff of about 11 people. So some people may look at this situation of, for me, time is money. And like you've met my editor. I don't want to edit. That gives me back 6 hours of my day. So I'll hire somebody to do the editing for me. I don't want to do the writing on a particular script. I'll hire somebody to do the writing on my script. I didn't think about this in a gaming sense until recently. So what ended up happening was last July, I decided I wanted to get into Savage because there's a thing called the Ultimate Tier, which Final Fantasy players know all about.
Yes.
The Ultimate Tier. It's that shining golden apple at the top of that proves that I'm the best I can be at Final Fantasy XIV. I have that title and that trophy. And I was like, I want to get that. So I went through all the appropriate routes. First thing I did was, how do you get into a Savage group? Because the first mistake I made was before that, I tried to jump in with my buddies. And that was a terrible idea because I know there are people who will make a group with their friends and it will work. But the problem that I ran into is not that my friends are bad. It was the mentality everyone had initially. It was, you had the one guy that was there because he wanted to hang out with his friends, and you had the other guy that couldn't put the extra time in for the tomes, and you had the two other guys that were grinding out their parses like crazy trying to get super high numbers, and then you had the other guy who was dealing with real life and he could barely make it, and that was the friend attempt at it. And we didn't even get past, like, I think Doom Train. We went like 2 weeks and couldn't get past like tier 1 of that tier. So that disbanded. So last July I decided I was going to look for a more dedicated Savage group. My philosophy was, if I'm not friends with them at the start and it's a terrible experience, I can leave and not feel guilty.
Yeah.
So
preserve the friendship, and there's like a little scratch for that. Yeah.
So basically what happened is the first thing what came up, of course, when you're trying to get a Savage group is they go, what's your parse? Well, starting last July, I didn't have a parse. It was, I like Bard. That was my parse. So right off the bat, if I didn't have any parses, people didn't even want to talk to me. Like, I wouldn't get responses. If they would ask, what's your parse? I would respond, I don't have one right now. I'm working on that. No responses and nothing. They wouldn't. So that took forever to begin with. Eventually, for a person I'm super friends with at this point reached out, and she was very blunt about it, but she was like, we can work on the parse. Can you just make it at these times, at these days, and we'll bring you in and we'll parse you and see where you stand. And I was like, yep, can totally do that. At the time, I was still traveling a ton, but traditionally, if I do a trip, it's a Friday to Monday thing, and they wanted to run Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So I was like, perfect, works great. I can do that and still do my job. So got into this group, and I worked hard on it, and we worked on the parses. But that's the first problem with Savage rating. The group I got into, once we cleared it, that was the end of it. Okay, and this is going to come up later, Brian. This is the problem right now. We would clear it and beat it, and that's it. So what that turned into is, eventually, unless you were running these things off on your own, I was getting practice of each fight 1 day a week.
Okay.
So like the parses were going up, but a very slow pace.
Yeah, and 1 day a week is, I mean, when we talk about it, and that's been my challenge, and I've expressed it numerous times, people have invited, like, hey, can you commit to 2 or 3 days a week to doing this raid? And at the moment, I'm still procreating, so that becomes a challenge. I mean, it's just with the state of life.
We were going 2 to 3 days, but once we cleared it, we were done for the week.
Yeah.
So like once you beat it, we didn't go back in and improve. We didn't go practice to try and clean it up a little bit more. If we hit in rage, we still beat it, so no one cared. And we got through the whole tier that way. No issues at all, and I was excited. We got to the end of the tier, and then the discussion came up of jumping into Ultimate. But we took so long to get through the tier that it was close to 5.3. And so it was kind of like a mentality of like, well, we'll just wait for 5.3, clear that, then get into Ultimate. So I was a little irritated with that, but once again, it became a mindset thing. We had some people who wanted to play other games. We had some people who wanted to be really dedicated. But I had a static group now. I was happy. Everything should have been fine, Brian, right?
Yeah. Everything should have been fine. But
right. March hits. We get 5.3. The group is pretty divided on what they want to do. We end up kicking out 2 people because they're not dedicated enough. Another person doesn't even want to get tomes. The group is seemingly falling apart, but every week our leader pulls everyone together and has the discussion of how we're going to fix this. After about a month or so, I'm in COVID. I've got a ton of time. I'm like, I want to be more dedicated to Final Fantasy rating. I'm going to go in and do this. And this is where my story gets interesting, because up to this point, it sounds like everybody else's raid story.
This is where, well, yeah, this is when we were talking. I was like, wow, like this is a whole, like, guys, we're about to go into a whole new world. One that I was just like blissfully ignorant of, but it's like I've heard talk of it, you know, like occasionally, but it was never anything that I was like, tell me more. I must know about this. So this is the adventure we're about to go on. Before we do, though, from the show, thanks to all the new subs. I've gotten some notifications and I've been adjusting the audio. So thank you guys for helping me run this live. And thanks to also all my Texas Ninjas, Undesirable to Undeniable. Thank you for subscribing. And if I missed a sub, I do apologize. But guys, feel free to let us know if you have any questions. The goal of this is also to be a live interactive show with you guys hanging out as well. But Benny, let's go ahead and dive into the rest of your story. This is where things, I think, get really interesting. And there's also a correlation to what's going on in Destiny 2, but we'll kind of get into that.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
So, because up till now, it's just like everybody else's raid story. My group started falling apart. It fell apart, and then I had to start looking for a new group. So the first thing I did is, okay, now I got my parses, Brian. It's going to be great. I'll be able to get into a group. I'll be able to do this, no problem. So I go on to the Discord, I go on to the Reddit, I go on to every source you can look to find a thing. And I literally throw out, I'm interested in Ultimate. I've already, I've cleared E5 through 7. I'm past Light Rampant and Shiva. You know, my parser's a little low, but I'm looking to get with a group that wants to continually practice, continually work on these together, be that team element that I remember from Final Fantasy XI, where even if we cleared for a week, we'd go clean up the practice. Oh, let's just go run that again. Let's just go run that again. There's no drops, but whatever. Because I wasn't getting that. I wasn't getting that group dedication that I was looking for. And now that I had all this time, it was like, now I really want to do that. So I start looking and I start getting responses from raid team. Now I'm getting responses. My favorite response so far has been, your parse is too low. Go improve it in Party Finder. Okay, now first off, Party Finder is the worst advice you can ever give anyone, because the goal of being in a static is to have one strategy that you work on together and you improve upon that strategy. That's the point. Yeah. I will tell you right now, Brian, Shiva's Light Rampant has about 3 effective strategies, and the one that my group learned is called Aotori, and the one that Aether likes to do is called Ilia. So right off the bat, I can't effectively get into a Party Finder. I've got to, even though I don't have the clear at this time, I can't effectively get into an Ilia party because I can't do Ilia properly. So now I have to look for a Light Rampant group. But now we're a month in, so every Party Finder is past that. They're all looking for a thing called Worm's Lament 2 at that point. So I've literally camping Party Finder, looking for Ilia groups, getting frustrated, and the responses are, your parse isn't high enough. You don't know how to do Ilia already. You don't. We don't know Ilia. Aotori, go learn Ilia. Go into Party Finder. My favorite response was, if you don't know how to deal with Party Finder people, you won't be able to adjust to our mistakes. Like, so you're telling me you're going to make mistakes, and you want me to be good at adjusting to your mistakes by learning how to adjust to Party Finder people first. Right. Basically, every Savage group that was looking for consistent members, the response was, go into Party Finder and fail. Beat your head against a wall until you learn it, and then you can come back to us. Bear in mind, I've already beat 5 through 7. I'm already past Lights Rampant, but my group's just not concluding this. But this is April. I'm frustrated. I'm snapping at my group, telling them to get their crap together. Well, because we had that same thing. We had some people who just didn't care. We had some people who really cared. We had the guy showing up who just wanted to be there to kill time. And we start going through April, and I'm just getting the same responses over and over and over. You know, go do your Party Finder, go do this. I'm still running with the current group, hoping that we can at least get through. We're making baby steps. It feels like every session we make very minor progress to get through it. And that eventually comes into May. So the scene, what I'm noticing at this point, has this barrier for entry. And I've noticed this, where they want you, the people looking for groups want you to, 1, know their strat in its entirety right at the get-go. They don't want to learn it with you. They want you to know it. Then they also want you to have a high parse already, which means that not only do you know the strat, but you know it well enough to get your rotation worked in to all the nuances and get it way up there. So no group would take you unless you were already parsing, from what I was seeing, around a blue at least, and you were already completing the run. Okay. And that takes practice, doing it with an effective group of people. I tell everyone multiple times, the biggest problem in Final Fantasy XIV is not the raids, not the mechanics. It's finding 7 people under the same mindset that are competent enough to do the challenge.
There is a part of me that, and to confess, there's a relieving part, because I've often felt that, and I've often felt that it's my stage of life, and it's just, I mean, and I know that I could do that if I had more time, but that, I mean, what you've just described is saying it's a, you know, I would need to really commit, and it's not just like, hey, this week I have 3 nights to raid. No, it's like, hey, this, 6 months, this is what I'm going to be doing, and I need to either make that decision now or more. But when you talk about 7, I've always called it the curse of 7, because when we've ever tried, every time I've tried, I can always get 7 people. I've always had to then go and find the random person who always drops on me after 3. And so then I decided, I was like, as a content creator, me being the leader of this, like, shindig, is not working. Because then we're going to have a wide range of people, and then I have to sit here and say, like, I don't want to be the guy who's like, you're out, you can't cut it. Like, cut me if I'm doing bad. Like, I would rather just be somebody who comes in and plays and enjoys the game, but not having that available time to sit here and say, yep, 3 nights a week, 4 nights a week, this is what we're doing until we get the clear. Woo! But you tell me that, man, part of me just goes, thank God, in a way, because that's the thing. That's the thing I have long dealt with over the last couple of years. I've chosen to procreate. Like, I've made these decisions. I'm happy with my decisions and choices in life, but there's still a part of me that wants to be a part of this. There's still, like, when you were telling me the story, like, a part of me is like, how can I make that happen? So tell the world, what was your solution?
Well, so I do want to clarify, because there are people out there who are looking to get whoever is available and learn it together. But the reason why I got a few of those, but the reason I wasn't taking those offers at the time is I still technically was in my previous group. So if I already have a group that's making slow progress and they're not wanting to disband, I'm the one wanting to take it a little more serious. I'm not going to then leave to go to another group that's kind of on that same level of, we're not completing, you know what I mean? So I do want to clarify, there are some people trying to start from scratch, but you'll find out why that also doesn't work once I finally got out of the other group. So, because I tried that as well. So basically at this point it was May and I was getting super fed up. Okay. And I haven't been able to find a more hardcore group, and the only invites I'm getting are people that are more casual than the group I'm in. And the mid-core group that I'm in isn't beating Shiva, and it's frustrating because nobody wants to practice, and we're trying to mess with these groups and everything like that. And we get through it. And I started randomly at this time streaming Final Fantasy XIV raids. I was like, well, I'm just going to stream it. I need to get some stream hours in. I might as well stream the raids. Right. This will come back later why this matters, that I started streaming the raids. Okay. The audience enjoyed the raids. They enjoyed the banter, but even they started to notice after a couple of weeks, wow, you guys are just going to fail on Shiva again tonight. Yay. Even the audience sees it happening. Wow. Oh. Like they would show up and they're like, oh, you're back on Shiva? I'll check in an hour.
I need to get a meme board.
But we were getting pretty good views with it. So May rolls through and we get to the end of May. And one of the guys who me and a couple of people in the old group talked about is kind of the core of the not caring attitude, decided to suddenly care. Oh. Like everyone in this group is frustrated. Everyone in this group is irritated. The only reason I think at this point we were even together is because we were so close to beating it. We're like, we don't want to leave at this point. We're right there. We're right at Worm's Lament 2. We just need to nail down that last strat. And he comes in and he starts trying to call out everyone's rotations, parses, gear. And this is the guy that didn't care. This is the guy that told us he wouldn't cap tomes. He wouldn't work on his BIS. He didn't care what happened. And it was a black mage that wanted the whole group to adjust to him. So me and a couple of the other people start arguing with him about the whole situation. And it basically gets so heated that the ninja officially quits. He's like, that's it. I'm done. He's like, I cannot do this anymore. I'm done with this group. He quits out. This is Wednesday. Our last night is on Thursday. And this is where it gets interesting, Brian. I guess kind of up to this point where this is where what you and I talked about. I know you want to hear about.
Oh, yeah.
So what ended up happening.
It's so fascinating.
Yeah. So at that point, I'm super frustrated. Okay. Now, once again, I'm a guy who has people doing jobs that I don't want to deal with. that's what I do in my job. I have an editor, I have a writer.
Mhm.
And I was thinking about this Wednesday night, and I'm like, you know what? And for the record, I'd already been thinking about this because now that I'm streaming it, my idea was, well, I'm technically making money on it. Maybe I'll pay my stream group, my raid team, because they're helping me create this content. Because I have the benefit of having Comicstorian, so that's where my funding comes from.
Yeah.
So Twitch, I can kind of disperse amongst the people helping me make the content. And I'd already been thinking about this. And I go into Party Finder, and you can probably look at it right now. I have Final Fantasy up at all times. I'll tell you right now how many there are. And I know you've seen them at the top of the list. Selling Edens vs. Savage, Crafter for Hire. That one's probably real. Min-Max, Summer Sale, Min-Max, Summer Sale, Restocker, Legacy, Found It Cheaper, We'll Do It. There's literally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's 7 of them. 8, 9. There's 10.
Yeah.
11. 11 sellers on there.
Yeah.
Now, I've never spoken to these people before. Outside of the occasional, like, I think we've all memed at one point. What are you charging for that? LOL, no. You know what I mean? Like,
Right, yeah, absolutely. It's like, how much? Nope, not really interested. Sorry, thank you.
So I see all these things up there. I'm frustrated. I'm at the end of Shiva. I don't want to get into a Party Finder group to finish Shiva. And I start sending out mass messaging. Now, no, I know from previously goofing around with people in my free company with these people that what they want to do is log onto your account and beat the content for you. Now, even if you're okay with that, and it's perfectly fine if you want to do that to pass your stuff. I'm not against it. Personally, I don't feel like I've earned it. Even if it was like a carry, I feel like I've earned it, even if we've gone through it. Okay?
Yeah. I think I might have an exception personally when I let my kids go and level for me in game when they're old enough. That's
well,
been
exactly.
playing a long game here, but yeah.
I remember when I was a kid, I used to me and a buddy be working on achievements together. So we'd be literally playing the same Xbox game, but he would play these 10 hours, I would play this 10 hours, and that's how we grinded things out. In theory, it's no different, but it's not your direct friend.
Right.
But I'm still, at least in Final Fantasy and in Destiny, which I'll talk about in a minute, exact same situation. I was, as long as I'm participating, even if I'm not the strongest member of the team, I've achieved the goal. I've done it.
Right.
That's the whole point. You can be in a Party Finder Savage group and beat Shiva and just be the worst player.
Right.
It'll still count.
Yeah, they're not like at the end of it, like, all right, because the game doesn't actually feed you any parsing information. The game doesn't feed you a score. It's either
no one knows if I was
did...
the worst, or the best, unless you're using ACT, which you're not supposed to give people shit for using. So, I mean, not supposed to give people shit for their parsing from using it if you want to use it.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. 100%. We've seen what happens. It's interesting that, like, talking about an end game as boiled over into an offense within it. So it just kind of makes it all the more sense. Like, just be quiet. Just don't.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I reached out and I sent the same message to quite a few people. I want to play my own character. No one's piloting my character. I want you to teach me the mechanics. I'll pay a premium if need be. I want to know what the price would be to rent your team for seven people for an hour at a time. What would be the cost?
Right.
And I want all Shiva loot.
Well, yeah. Like if you're setting the terms, you might as well set the whole thing. The whole terms. Like,
I want all Shiva loot. I want you to teach me how to do it properly. And I want your competent people so that I don't have to worry about them messing up. And then I'm wondering if I messed up.
Right, exactly.
And most of them didn't even respond because the general response was, well, we log on to your account. And the second thing you always get is you have to pay up front, which I refuse to do. Like, I'm not going to pay up front. And I get why. The reasoning is simple, because you could pay up front and then you could pay not pay them.
Right.
So they want the payment up front to make sure they're going to get it, but at the same time, you could be getting scammed, but they're worried about being scammed on the backside. So it's someone has to give. So I found a guy that was American. We chatted on Discord. He was 100% fine with a rent a team fee.
Rent a team.
That's what he called it. He's like, yeah. He's like, we'll do that if you want. He's like, normally we pilot. He's like, but if you're going to pay hourly, and we agreed on 2 hours initially, I would pay for 1 hour up front. And then I could pay for the other one afterward. That was our terms on it. So that it's
like any kind of contract. It's like 50% down. Like, okay, that's fine.
And I was like, you know what? It's not that much money. It's a good amount of money, but it wasn't like thousands of dollars like I've seen on websites and shit like that. I think at the time we worked out the terms to be like, it was going to be, I think like $70 an hour or something like that. But that's $10 per person. You got to think how much the individual person was making for doing it, kind of a thing. Which is still a good amount, but I knew I was close enough to Shiva that it shouldn't take me more than 2 hours. Like, I should have this down relatively soon. Got in there, beat it, got my loot, everything's good. And I'm like, fantastic. I've learned the strats. I beat the thing. My group eventually just disbanded the next day, the group that I was with, and that was the end of that. And I was like, okay, I have a clear. I've learned Ilya. I have the only thing I need to do now, because I have all my loot, I need to work on my parse. But I love raiding. I want to do it again. So I thanked the guy for their time. I got in touch. We became very friendly, and I moved over to all the LFG stuff again. All right, let's go find a static. Let's go find a static. Okay. You would think at this point it should be relatively easy. I'm clearing the content. It doesn't matter. And I've cleared it with the appropriate
And
stats.
you know the strat that people are using.
I'm using the strat that they're using. While I could use some cleanup on it, I've cleared it using Ilya. And if anybody who's done light rampant on Shiva knows, you can't be carried through Ilya. You have to do it. If you don't do it, everyone dies. So at the bare minimum, people know that I've cleared it at least once. So we then moved on I moved on to Party Finder, and I started looking again, and I got the same response, Brian. Well, your parse isn't high enough. Okay, but I cleared the content. I'm looking for a group to re-clear with. I don't even want loot. I just want to re-clear and make that parse better. Oh, well, your parse isn't high enough.
Right.
Okay. And I kept getting that response over and over and over. And like, I kept trying to jump in Party Finders and stuff like that, but generally that wasn't going anywhere. I couldn't improve my strats when everyone's doing that. So it goes almost the entirety of June, and I don't have a solid group. I keep trialing with groups. One group said that I messed up their strats, but they literally did 3 different strats mid-run that they didn't say. One group had 3 people that bailed after 2 runs. Another group, like it was every Party Finder disaster happening over the course of the month.
All
and
in
these
once,
and these are all supposed to be statics. Like this isn't supposed to be. I'm supposed to be. Oh, we figure out the problems. We work on it together. We start clearing things. We start clearing things. That's supposed to be what I'm doing here. So we get to the end of June. Now, during this time, I started streaming Destiny, which I've run with you.
Yes.
And in Destiny has a very similar market over there.
It does.
You can pay people to run trials with you, to run raids with you, to things like that. It's a thing where people have gotten so good at Destiny, they won't hang out with the lower people unless you're just actually really good friends with them, but they get paid for their services. Now, maybe you and I could look at it a little differently because we literally get paid to entertain while playing these games. They're getting paid to be good at the game. So maybe it looks a little bit differently, but that's a whole nother scene of hacking and problems to the point where you have to like pay to get through trials and things like that, unless you are God tier, which I am not. So that was like $30. I hung out with 2 guys for a couple hours. They were like MLG level players. It was a fun time. Had a good time with that, and ended up getting that clear over there on that side.
You posted a video on it. That was really. You posted your video on going flawless in Destiny 2. Guys, again, for those of you joining us just mid-podcast, Eligible Monster is now Comicstorian Gaming. Be sure to follow his gaming content channel over there. Lore, just fantastic content. So, again, plug in your channel. But, yeah, but continue, because this is, like, and even chat, Fencing was talking about this, all things considered, this is kind of a gray market. You know,
it is. It's a weird market. And that's why I thought it'd be great to talk to you about it, because what I've realized, like Destiny's market for this is massive.
Yes.
The amount of people that I have met that are selling their, like, hey, you want me to run PvP with you for a couple hours, carry the whole group? I'll do it for like $15. You know, like the amount of people making a living off of just being good at Destiny and helping people in raids and helping people in PvP and helping people in clears and is insane. Now, luckily for me, and you've met my clan, we're clearing most of that content ourselves.
Yeah.
They aren't PvP centric, hence how I ended up meeting these guys.
Yeah.
And I became buddies with them, so I don't even pay for their time. It's just we hang out off the time now. But like, and that's what, so, but what I realized was I stream Destiny with these people and I pay them for their time. And it's because I have the ability to with Twitch. Twitch donates money. I give the money to them. I don't take it for myself. I look at it as I'm paying a co-host.
Right.
Sure, that guy's amazing at PvP, but he's here to just banter and chat with me, and he's just going to get a check for being here. That's literally what it is. And that got me thinking about Final Fantasy XIV. And after this last incident with this last raid tier, it got me thinking about that guy that I spoke to about how you could rent a team.
Yeah.
So my last static attempt was a complete disaster, and I feel like the leader of that one had so many internal issues it wasn't even funny. Like, it was one of those situations where I didn't cause a single wipe, but they wanted to blame a wipe on me, And I even watched the video back, and the other guy said I didn't cause the wipe. He hits me up the next day, and he kicks me out because I caused the wipe, which everyone says I didn't cause. And the guy that I'm talking to is the one that did cause the wipe, and he's saying he caused the wipe, but they want to kick me out. And I, instead of arguing it, I'm like, that's cool. Really don't even want to fight with this anymore.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. Well, it's that, you know, the question is, and this comes into the concept because we were actually kind of talking. I think you're going to post a video. I know I'm planning on a video for Ginger Prime, but talking about like Destiny Gary tweeted out that he wants raid matchmaking in Destiny 2, and many people have spoken out against it. You and I talked about it. And you were like, no. But when it comes down to it, like here's like, you know, yeah, 14 has matchmaking. However, Party Finder, matchmaking, like there's this entire economy that's grown out of that system. If you were just matchmaking into this, I'm wondering what that level of acceptance is in terms of finding that pug of that group that just kind of said, you know what, I'm just going to casually hit Q into this. I'm just going to see what happens. And then after maybe 3 attempts, if it's not looking like it's going well, I'm going to go because I'm really not committed. I don't know any of these people. And what's also interesting in your story from when you started, where you started the story back with Bahamut's Coil, you know, like that in and of itself, that's you and your team, your static, and everybody kind of moving in that same direction. Years later, here we are. And the primary concern that I'm hearing, or the primary issue beyond like the grayness of like, okay, let's just rent a team. It ties into trying to find 7 people who are trying to actively work on that content who really give a shit. I mean,
yeah, that's his biggest thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think every group has that one guy that's there because his buddy's there. He doesn't care. He's just there because his buddy's there.
It's like, can I invite my friend?
Yeah, like, can I invite my friend? I just want to hang out with him at the same time.
We need somebody else. Yeah, I guess so, you know.
Is he good? Well, he'll get better. Oh, no.
Is he geared?
Yeah, is he geared?
Some
Can he get through?
Mog board stuff. I'm like, okay.
And every time someone would hit me out and be like, well, your parsers are grays and greens, my response would be, because I'm not party findering. I clear it once a week. Mm-hmm. If I have no problems if I'm with a group learning our strats, then working on my parse. But if you're going to change the strats, which is going to change my parse, I play machinist. I need to know the exact spot to do the burst so that I can maneuver around the burst. Otherwise, I just go in there and get the clear because that's the problem. You can get a clear with grays.
Right.
So what the hell does it matter? You know what I'm saying? So the group ended up eventually just disbanding, and I guess the guy even deleted the Discord afterwards and everything like that. And I started thinking about it. I'm like, so if I'm on Destiny,
you're right.
I had the idea before my previous group broke up to pay them for their time. If we're going to do raids and we're going to get donations, why don't they get the money? Which, look, I don't care what you say about getting paid to play a game. If you're getting a paycheck to show up on time with your pots, with your food, and you're there, you know, like ready to roll, you're more incentivized to actually show up. And I had discussed this with my old raid leader. I was like, when 5-4 hits, I want to stream that. And I want to put aside some money to pay you guys to be my co-host. And she was like, I don't know if we should do that. I don't know how I feel about it. It is exactly what that guy said in the chat. People start getting a gray area when you're getting a check to do your game.
Yeah.
Like, that's just it. Like, it seems like people have to break that mentality. And I've always thought of it a little differently because literally you and I, we did a raid in Destiny. Mm-hmm. Regardless of how much money was made, be it pennies from a donation or be it an actual check from gifted subs, we made money that period doing Destiny. Mm-hmm. So I guess
not
in my
like
head,
in the porn way, but yes.
So I guess in my head, it doesn't seem that bad if you're just good at a game to get paid for your time, you know, because
especially in today's market, let's just take this and like lay it out there. Put it all in real brass tacks. Ninja made $30 million off of like Mixer's collabs. Like there is definitely an economy. I definitely, like when we talk about, and I've used the expression like when we talk about like the upper class, middle class, and lower class, like in the terms of content creation, middle and low class are pretty much like the bulk of people, but they're also the ones, you know, fighting over kind of the pennies, you know, like the same.
Right.
Then, but yeah, the upper class, it's like these guys are just making bank. Now, then you have kind of a concept, because why do people watch content creators? Like, why do they watch? Well, me, I have no idea.
It's the beard. Your beard's
beard.
amazing.
Oh, thank you very much. Beard oil, it definitely does the trick. On that regards, when you look at it, like people will either watch like the most skilled people, and for some reason, maybe these skilled people aren't streaming, but there are like one of the things I've often believed is like just because someone's streaming and they're skilled, there still can be somebody out there who's just like, I'm not really confident, but I can play this game and I can do it incredibly well. I have a talent for that. The other side is it becomes a kind of an entertainment factor. Somebody either has a lot of knowledge, somebody is just generally fun and interesting and funny or humorous or insightful to watch. So there's all different ways that people kind of come into this. What's really interesting around gaming, and gaming specifically, is that as you grow as a content creator, obviously you get people in your community to enjoy that kind of content. They discover that content. They're like, this is a great place that I like to hang out and like to, whether I agree or we can have good discussion. But then you also have kind of that other mindset that it's like, are you really true? Like, because once money, and this is anything, once money starts getting put on the table, I think it's fine. I think it's fair to question the intentions of like of the creator, right? And I even talked about this a little bit on my video that just went up today, when it's like I've returned to Final Fantasy XIV after a long break, one that was originally planned to be much shorter, but due to COVID pushing the patch backwards, I just kind of used that time to play Phantasy Star Online too. I always focus in on the games that I care about, like hands down. I don't like hating on games, but I can't imagine the pressure as a parent. Let's say that, you know, I had 2 million subs on Final Fantasy, and then anytime I talk anything else about it, nobody cares. You know, all of a sudden it's like, are you locked into this because this is how you eat, how you take care of your family? And so that's where I think a lot of grayness comes into it. But when you break it down, and I often when I teach like YouTube, because people have reached out, so I've kind of started teaching like, here's what I've learned. You've taught me a lot. Like, it's kind of me just paying it forward from the lessons that you've kind of like, hey Brian, like think about this way. But I use business terms in that because to separate the emotional excitement from a video that does well, or the emotional excitement or disappointment when nobody watched. Like, I posted this thing on Minecraft Dungeons. It's like, but I love the dungeons. They're so good.
I'm not even 7 years later, if I put up a video and I'm not expecting views on it, I can't bring myself to open up the YouTube studio.
Yeah.
I have to launch the video and I have to look at it like a week later, because that exact emotional I can't look at, like, it's not going to do well. I'm not even going to look at it.
But like back to that kind of concept, when it's like what you're proposing is that you're like, I'm hiring people to be a part of this show. Like, if all of a sudden it's like, hey, this show brings in nothing. We're not monetized. Subscribe to the channel, please. Hit that like button.
Subscribe. Help them out.
We got to get to 1,000. I think we're getting close to halfway there. But beyond like that monetization, it's like all of a sudden, hey, this actually brings in a certain amount of money. And then the question I always look at from my perspective, because I don't rely on YouTube revenue as a means of survival, I look at it like, how can I invest that back into the channel? Like, what can I do to make my content either better or more exciting, or do these things? Like, because I have these ideas that take a long time, but because they take a long time, I end up sometimes using a little bit of the YouTube money to take a day off work to focus in on the content. So it allows me to like, hey, this is a day off, so I can actually make this really cool thing that unless I have 10 hours to focus in on it, it won't get done. And unfortunately, this is like guys, like my wife is incredible. Anytime you ever see her like in chat or whenever she randomly drops in a live stream, be sure to shower her with love, because I have the mind that it's like, once I start something, I have to finish it. So I schedule my days now to where, like, at 4:00, I usually get off at 5 or 5:30, 4:00 Central, I have no new tasks. So if I get done at 4:10, I start nothing new. I just will end up doing documentation and all the programming, boring tasks that are just very simple. Because if I start something new and I cannot finish it before it's time to go to dinner and play with the kids, my mind can't turn off. And
that's how I am.
And it drives me. I'm like, and Julie's just like, I'll come down and she's like, you're not here. Like, I'm physically walking around, but mentally I'm not. And so she'll either say, just go get it done, or, but so I'm just trying to do a better job as being a parent and father. But all that being said, is like, there is a complexity to this, but at the same time, at the end of the day, like, if you are able to hire a team that is now your, if almost like your squad, and you're paying them for their time, which makes them committed. Money will make people show up.
It doesn't even matter how much it is. If there's any kind
Right.
of monetary gain, like someone's like, okay, yeah, I should be ready. I got to be there. I don't want to be kicked from this.
Right.
And that's just it. Like, I enjoy playing this game, and he's going to pay me to be there. Hell yeah. Like,
And why not them? Why Ninja or why a Shroud or all these
Yeah.
big time name celebrities? You know, they get paid. They get paid like crazy. Might as well, like, you know, it's like if you got a talent, like, know your value. And I think essentially though, it's almost kind of like you're hiring a mercenary group where it's like you're contracting with Blackwater and they're like, we've got the team, they're trained, they're ready, as opposed to trying to individually get one person after the next, right? Like you have kind of a guy who's like, all right, this is the crew. I've vetted them. We're showing up. We're rocking this out. That's how.
Yeah, and I've vetted the people that I bring on the streams. I make sure that they're not just some weirdo that I just happen to, you know what I mean? Like,
that's
wow,
risky.
these guys
like,
don't have any social skills.
Comicstorian took a really dark turn. Turns out, like, yeah, the guy's incredible at Destiny, but he's also a raging racist.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, and it's funny because a lot of these games have like a terms of service thing where like you cannot exchange actual cash for a direct thing. The way a lot of these guys get around it, and I mean, even I do it too, like to an extent, it's like you pay for their time.
Yeah.
You're not paying for the service. If you're doing cash, it's time. You're like, oh, we're going to do trials on Destiny. Okay, this is how much I pay. I charge an hour to come and hang out with you. And if we get it done, cool. On Final Fantasy, they do it for Gil. They just get Gil and they all just get all the crazy stuff in the game. And that's how they do it. Or they do an hourly thing. Like we can't guarantee what's going to happen, how fast you're going to learn, none of that stuff. It's an hourly thing. You're just hanging out with us. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it's an interesting way to look at it because what I realized getting into these groups, because once I started, so after the group broke up and I reached out and I presented like, here's what so what people don't realize, and I'm making my Discord more aware of it now because I don't think they were aware of it as much as I wanted them to be. I have many people on my team that get small part-time job checks for the month to run various aspects of the community. So like what you said earlier, you were like, I don't have the time to make a Savage group. Right. So I realized years ago that there's people who want to hang out, but I don't have the time to show up every day. And I don't have the time to organize a Destiny community, a Warframe community, a Final Fantasy community, a Minecraft community, of whatever community they want. So I pay people as community managers to manage events and stuff happening on my servers so that the people who are just trying to find people to play games with can all come together. They get together and they farm dogs in Final Fantasy, or they'll help people get through the raids in Destiny, or they'll help people with their latest stuff in Warframe. So I'm already paying people that. And I had thought of a buddy of mine who needed a job. And I was like, what if I pay you to organize a Savage team? Like that is your job. Your job is to make a Savage team with the purpose of me putting it on stream so that I can monetize it. But you handle all the drama, the logistics, the checking people's tomes. You do all that.
Yeah.
And I'm going to pay you to do it. And he had some stuff come up in his real life and he couldn't do it. And I was like, okay. And then I thought about that guy that I talked to back at the end of May that helped me just get a solid team. And I threw the offer at him. What if I give you guys the community wage and you split it accordingly? You do what you want to do with it. I don't care. I'll pay you. You guys come and hang out with me for 2 hours, 2 days a week on 2 very specific stream days. We're going to teach me how to do tea, and you're going to teach the audience how to do tea. We're not going to keep it quiet that you're my co-host for this stream, and we just do it that way. And they're 100% on board.
Yeah.
So I pretty much have hired 7 co-hosts, aka 7 people who can clear tea in their sleep to show up and teach me how to do ultimates. I'm going to clear it with everyone else. I'm going to do it. I'm going to play it. It's going to be streamed, the whole experience.
Yeah.
And I realized I've paid a Savage team to be my static.
What's the tax write-off on all of this?
So luckily, since we do these videos, I can write the entire expense off.
There it is, everybody. That's what you need to do. So, like, if anybody's out there going like, hey, Brian, that sounds like a great deal. It's like, we just got to grow. You got to get subscribed to Work to Game and Ginger Prime and Comicstorian Gaming and Comicstorian. Like, just subscribe, watch the videos. If we grow big enough, like, there's like, oh, man, I was showing off, like, how much money I make. And it's like, and it's somebody who said, oh, wow. That's not a lot.
YouTube is weird because I remember those days. It goes from like, I used to say it's a part-time gig. If you don't have a full-time job, you're screwed.
Right.
But YouTube is that weird thing where you'll just hit some kind of stride and it just shoots up to full-time paycheck. And you're like, all right, I'm good.
Exactly. I actually was just finishing editing my second sponsored video. We got it sponsored by Raycon. They're not sponsoring this channel, so I'm gonna actually talk about them. Fantastic device. I've been using this, love it, and so I'm editing to that, and that's gonna hopefully approve it. It's such a process to do a sponsored post too.
Oh, it is.
Oh my gosh, it's like, okay, here's
your Chad
this
is saying it sounds like a great idea. And you should build a
I
community.
agree.
And pay them.
Like, I'm working on it, guys. Like, undesirable. Like, you guys got to go. Like, let's totally pyramid Ponzi scheme this thing. You go find 5 people, and then they find 5 people, and so on and so forth. And after I think 5 levels, we'll have everybody in the world subscribe to Work to Game. And as long as they're watching the videos, yeah, we can totally. Like, I'm not against the idea whatsoever, because it comes down and boils down to what's your time worth. And I think somebody earlier in chat was talking about, like in life, you either have a lot of time and not a lot of money, or you eventually get to a point where you've got money and you don't have a lot of time. And so then you start paying for services and things like that that you used to do yourself that you cannot either afford to doing that right now.
So here's what I found out. This is where the information gets like really fascinating. Because like this isn't just me bragging. Like I paid a static, Brian, and I've concluded
I don't think it's
that
a
I'm
brag.
going
I think
to
it's
win.
a legitimate thing that maybe even other content creators might consider, depending on like their group and their team. If they don't have a team and they're always kind of like, man, this is something I want to do, I don't find any fault in it. I think it's
right. Well, because I look at it as co-host. Like if I don't beat T in the sessions they're there for, as long as I've presented a good stream, that's what I'm after. Now, if I happen to beat T and somehow get to write it off, I'm not going to be like, oh no, that was terrible. But and for those who T is the something Alexander. It's always referred. It's the ultimate right now. If you're but what I realized is this. How do you get access? It's my Discord, but I'm not going to promote my Discord on Brian's channel.
Promote, dude. Like,
I don't even have a link.
Well, anyway, like he'll look for the link. Go ahead and finish your story. We'll be sure to get that link.
So anyway, what ended up happening is, so I now obviously I've got people in Destiny that I pay my community managers to run raids for everyone who wants to run raids. One of my guys reached out to you to help you finish up your thing.
Yeah,
we're doing that with you.
Shax,
he is on my payroll. Like he literally asked, like, okay, what days do I want to do this? Blah blah blah, and he's doing it. They all do these as part-time jobs, but that guy is a nurse. The one that contacted you, like he's got a full-time gig.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and it's just some of the best guys. Like it is like
Epic of Alexander. That's it. For some reason, I was thinking something else with it. But yeah, Epic of Alexander.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to that. It's just I love like pickup stuff. One of the things that and I don't mean the following to sound braggadocious in any way, but like I'm a gamer. Like at the end of the day, like I play games. I work my butt off to be as good as possible at those games. It doesn't mean I am right now, and it doesn't mean I am the best when I started. I always think of myself as finding ways to improve, and I continue to do that. So one of the things that still persists today is that I'm often surprised by when I undervalue myself, and when I step into these scenes, I find that I'm pretty competent, and I think that's one of the things.
You did fine when I was running with you. We ran out of time.
Right. And it wasn't time in the race. It was like, kids are here. Like it's like life comes in.
Yeah, you had distractions going on behind you. I only had like 10 minutes left because I mean, when you hit me up, I said I'm waiting for somebody to come around.
I was like, well, hell, we made it all the way to the last kind of part of it, and it's like, okay, well, good. I got experience through it. We'll be able to get to that part even faster. Like it's just fun content, and so that's one of the things that it's like. That's why, like, just as an aside, I know this is the CrystalCore radio podcast, but that's an aside where I've really enjoyed 14, especially in the 2-year cycle with the level cap, is that regardless if I have a lot of time or if I don't have enough time, I can just kind of chip away. Like I'm water on the Grand Canyon. I'm going to get there. And that's one of the things that, like, come this time next year, as we get ready for 6.0, a lot of comments will be like, Brian, how do you do it? I'm a dad too. Like, I've got a job too. How do you do it? It's like, it's just me, just like, you know, getting a little XP every little bit. Like
some people go, oh, 30 minutes isn't enough to make progress in 14. But even me, I'll jump on and do the low level in 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, once in a while, you got to drop out because, like, hey, I got 30 minutes. This group is slow. I can't do it. You got to bail. But more often than not, you complete it. No problem.
And so it's like I've been working on kind of a guide for Destiny 2 and basically the Busy Gamer's Guide to Destiny 2. And same thing, I'll have a Busy Gamer's Guide to Final Fantasy 14. And it's just a series that I've created for Ginger Prime, but it's talking about, and I use kind of the concept of blocks in 15 minutes. So it's like if I've got a 15-minute block, that's kind of how I kind of structure it. And it's all about like, okay, cool. And then I already know before I even hit go or play, it's what am I doing? What's the first thing I do? And what's my exit strategy to bounce out for whenever real life calls? Because these games don't have a pause, but I'm like hopelessly addicted to these games. Be sure to also be sure to also get the link for them. Cause
I linked it in there, but it's not a link because I'm not on your channel properly. I'm just verified.
Okay.
But no, so what ended up happening though is what I discovered is by hanging out with the Final Fantasy guys and hanging out with the Destiny guys, this is a whole community of people that know each other. And what I'm catching on, and like I said, this is my own experience. I know that there are raid groups out there that are just really good players who come together. But when you're in my situation and you're trying to find a raid group and you're trying to find one that works and wants to continually practice, the people who want to continually practice are the ones who are doing it to get paid. In Destiny, when I'm running trials with my PvP buddies, the entire time they're like, oh, that's that guy. Oh, that guy's in the other chat. Oh, let me go talk to that guy. They know everyone. They're all friends. They're all playing at that same high level. You don't see them in the low levels because they don't mess with you. The reason you've only recently started seeing them in Destiny is because they got rid of skill-based matchmaking. In the Final Fantasy world, listening to these guys talk, they know every other like top parsing players, and a lot of these top parsing players are in these groups. And the way that these things work, unless you work it out the way I did, is they go to like a bounty board. Oh, these people are willing to pay this much money to get carried through or piloted through this run. Hop on and do it. And they pick up those bounties. And that's what a lot of these top players do. Not every single one. I don't want to sound like I'm saying every single.
If you're a good player, you're obviously on the payroll. Yeah. Conspiracy
exactly.
theory starts from this one podcast and trickles out to the internet.
And what I'm almost seeing is it's a pseudo paywall to be able to get into those high level groups in Final Fantasy XIV, unless you know someone or you're lucky. So
that
one
almost
thing
sounds like you just described real life to me.
Well, it is. It kind of reminds me of that. So in 14, for those who don't know, I never say who I am or what I do as a real job. I never say I'm Comicstorian. I never say a Twitch stream. I never say anything. I'm just a low parsing machinist. That is it. Okay.
Your friendly neighborhood low parsing machinist at your service.
That's me. And I constantly go to people and I go, hey, I want to join your group so that I can learn your group. We can work together. I can improve my parsing and my abilities with you. I want to learn with a team that also wants to progress. That's what I'm looking for in a static, which, by the way, if anybody just wants to do reclears on a weekly basis, I'm available.
I need to learn the strat. See, because that's the thing that I've kind of
we can work it out with your community. I'll teach you all the strat. I have all the loot. I just want to play. I like playing.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. What a concept, playing a game for fun.
I know. I just want to play I don't care that I got the loot. I want to play. But what I realized is, so what happened to me in the short version of the story is I wanted to get involved, had to do a ton of research to get involved, got involved, was told that I'm not good enough to get in any good groups, had to find a group that was willing to accept a guy who wants to learn. That took forever. Finally got one of those. Got out of that group because they got a lot of people who needed to learn, which was great, but that wasn't a group that was pushing me and helping me get better at my job. So in the end of that, I was a low parsing machinist, at the time dancer, but I was low parsing. And bear in mind, I hate people that are always like, gray parse means nothing. If you actually look at the parses, to go from like gray to green is like 100, and go from like green to blue is like 100 difference. And we're talking like 3 global cooldowns screwed up, and you're screwed on your parse at this late in the game. So I hate people that are hitting me up like, I'm sitting there pulling like crazy numbers on machinists, and they're like, well, that was only a green. Okay, but we still killed it way ahead of schedule. What the hell are you talking about?
Yeah, I think that just also comes down to understanding and interpersonal office skills. Like if we were just going to refer to this kind of thing as a business, it's like, that's where from a manager, it's like, rather than like, oh, you suck, it's like, how can I help you go from green to blue? Like, what can I do to help you go from green to blue? And my whole thing, and the thing I will die on, the where I plant my flag and stand and say, this is the right mentality, is that instead of looking outward as to what other people didn't do right, or, etc., look at what you could have done better. Like whenever,
Right.
like even on a win, even on a loss, what could you have done better that would have taken pressure off the healer, allowing them to do an extra,
A lot of people don't understand that.
Right.
Like the Black Mage buddy I was with, where he's like, everyone adjust to me. Okay, well now my rotation's messed up. The healer has to place the bubble elsewhere, which moves the samurai into a weird position. Like, just because you're good at your job doesn't mean that you did, like, you still got clipped by damage down, or you still got took that one stray hit, and sure, you didn't die, but the healer now had to heal you, which took one heal away from the tank, and then the tank had to use an extra mitigation, which at 3 minutes later didn't line up properly, and we got one shotted,
Right.
like by something coming out. But but it's almost like the pay for progression, like Ubisoft, right? You can
Right.
pay to just skip farming.
Right.
In Final Fantasy XIV's raid scene, unless you have the connection or you know a friend or you're already orange parsing because you're just that good on a striking dummy, the answer comes down to spend 10 hours beating your head against Party Finder to get a semblance of a good parse, which does include being a dick. I hope I can say dick here.
You can.
You have to be a dick, because like the reason why people are jumping out after 2 or 3 pulls, they don't want that shit uploaded. Because the more uploads I have that say I did a gray because that guy screwed up, the harder it's going to be for me to fix the media.
Oh my gosh, I never thought about it.
That's why
I
they're
did. I
failing.
remember was doing like we had a bad pool, and I remember somebody was like went dig through some like logs because they got uploaded, and they were giving me crap, and I'm like, everybody wouldn't stop dying. I was the healer, and I was healing 99%. Like if you go look one column over at the healing parse, you could see that I was plenty busy.
Right. But that's what it is, though, because your bad parse now affects their median.
Yeah.
So when I'm trying to get into a group and they go, well, you had green, 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 but what are these 7 grays? Well, that was my Party Finder bullshit.
Yeah.
And my median is still gray. I can't get into that group.
That's awful. That makes a lot of sense, because that's why you have to then be a dick. Because if this is your end game, if this is your
get a high parse so people will take you.
Right. Or that they'll keep you. Imagine just in here going like, dude, I see that you fell down. Like, when it comes down, because when it comes down, especially if you're in a business of selling, like analytics are the be all end all, whether you come up with the right, answer or the wrong answer, like hands down, business analytics is be all end all. And it sounds like what's happened here with the raid community is we've aggregated the data so much so that the data is king, and it then dictates how our personality and how we interact with people. Because it's like, I've heard the horror stories. I'm sure you've heard the horror stories, like at TwitchCon or whatever, like people just being dicks, and it's like turn around and be like, how many subs do you have? Like that's some measure that they've succeeded and that they're a good human being. No, like that's a number. Congrats on, I guess.
If I've got a purple median parse, I've bailed on tons of groups to get that purple median parse, because I had to. Because if you upload me getting a gray parse because I died midway because you couldn't heal me, because the other ninja messed up a mechanic and you had to heal him and then you couldn't top me off, I'm going to get a shitty parse. So I have to bail on a bunch of parses. So it boils down to, if I want to get into an effective static group, I have to pug my way out to get a median parse that looks somewhat good.
Yeah.
Find nice people who want to learn with me. But as we've discovered, most of those groups barely can get through the final tier. Like you literally have to just beat your head against a wall or pay a solid group to help you get there. That's literally what it comes down to. And what you're paying for is their time, because those people, they're all hanging out with each other because they're the group that will spend 10 hours getting a perfect Shiva clear, so that way when they bring you in, they don't look bad.
Right.
But that's also how they have an orange parse.
It's fascinating. It's truly fascinating. Chili actually says, by the way, somebody actually uploaded Yoshi P's parse when he was doing pugs. How do you do, Chili? Do we have the numbers on what Yoshi P did? Especially in a pug. I wonder if he was happy with it. Oh,
and what blows my mind about that is, like, even like my first Shiva clear, even with those guys, was all gray down the board because they were doing something else. And you know what? We still beat it.
Yeah.
Like, there was nobody that was green, nobody that was purple, nobody that was orange. And that's because they have like 20 ults so that they can help everyone get through. So they just happen to be in an alt that wasn't geared properly.
Yeah,
But they know they've done it so many times. They know that they know the mechanics well enough that they can do it.
Right, and that, I mean, obviously shows that with grays that you can easily get the clear, but what it sounds like is that the social engineering where you don't want your parse to drop into a different color because that's going to impact your standing means that, no, like I can't risk that, so grays mean nothing because grays means that you might drop me to a gray. It's,
Exactly.
oh my gosh, did you ever see the Black Mirror episode in which that you rank people with the stars, and it's like higher ranked people, like it's totally like that whole, it's that, oh my god, we're living in Black Mirror.
What I'm saying is when you break out of the friend group version,
Yeah.
okay, and you're no longer in the friends, and you get into like the raid scene as a whole, from my experience so far, has been entirely, it's all about that parse, all about how many times you cleared. It's all about that stuff. If you haven't cleared enough times to be on my level, if you don't know the 3 strats for lights rampant, you aren't parsing a purple at least, don't even get near me because you're going to affect my parses and my numbers. It's so weird.
It is a new age, like coming from 11, coming from even like I don't remember any of this in 2.0.
No, none of this was a thing. Like you would see the guild sellers and be like, who would pay for that? And then that was what also blew my mind. Do you know why there was 11 things in the party finder there, Brian? Because people are paying for this.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, if
there wouldn't be 11 of them listed right now if people weren't paying for this
if
shit.
there wasn't a market, then that's always kind of what I felt like. People are like mad at guild sellers. It's like there wouldn't be any if there wasn't anybody paying for it. You know,
right.
no one's going to
sit here. It's the same thing with the Destiny stuff.
Yeah.
Like my Trials buddies that I hang out with now that I paid initially for, but now I've just become friends with. I can't talk to them Friday through Monday because they're running all the orders through.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're just constantly busy. So everyone
insane.
who's like, oh man, I can't believe that you would pay people to basically be your static. Yeah, well, you know what? I got 2 hours of people who are 100% prepped up to go. They're going to teach me to do it. I'm still going to beat it. And I'll have my trophy at the end. So what does it matter?
If I had the money, I'd do it. I mean, as long as I'm doing it.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
that's kind of
that was always my caveat because everyone, the first thing they'll say is, we'll pilot your account, which then makes me go, how many people are doing that? If that is the first answer to everyone.
Yeah, it's pilot program only. No, that doesn't give me any.
I get no experience. I just have a cool trophy. Well, but I guess if you only care about the glamour and like the commissions over on the Reddit and things like that, yeah, it'd be fine. It's whatever because I just care about the way it looks. I'm doing it for the experience of beating it. So that's my like. I won't let them pilot. I need to do it. Even though I'm the shittiest member of our 3-man trials team in Destiny, I still am in a 3-man trials team and got the win. Like my strategy in trials, like I showed you in that video, is I'm just the distraction. We still do that because it is so effective.
So here's some interesting comments that are coming in. And guys, if you guys got questions about anything that we talked about, sound off below. But essentially, Pile Bunker TV says, when you see it in WoW, you see it in WoW super often though, the show your logs thing is actually a part of their application process for any guilds. And I've seen that before. I've seen hey, what are your logs? This is a part of your application. I've applied back in the day, even back in 1.0. I remember this is like there's a form that you fill out and you get interviewed to be a part of like a link shelf.
It's a job. It's a job to be in an effective static.
Mm-hmm. And then Undesirable to Undeniable says, oh, when I pay friends, I'm a loser. But when Benny does it, he's a smart businessman. and here's, I guess, really kind of the kicker here, right? Like if outside, like there is the business aspect. Like you as a content creator make videos, people watch those videos, you inherently make money off of those videos and even the live streams. Like there is like if you were going to a bank and you're like, what's revenue? Like I'm applying for a business loan. Like you show your receipts. Like this is the money that's coming in. You've got enough. You've been doing this long enough that you have, enough data about what you bring in each and every month. Otherwise, you're not a smart businessman if you're hiring people that you can't afford to keep. You know, it's like,
100%.
And so it's like when it comes down to it, it all ties down into what is your time worth. I don't see anything different in terms of like if you hired an assistant to manage your calendar. It's
I
like
do have one of those.
Yeah, I aspire to be Benny. Like my goal, I just need to go like serve in the military, come back and be like, okay, cool. Now I've got that checkbox. How can I live through my dreams to be the next?
Casual 14 says in the Party Finder in EU, they have groups that are 85 plus to get better parses, which makes it even harder to get out of green or gray. And that's exactly it. Because the people that aren't in that high tier, they're trying to get to that high tier to either play with those players, get on the payroll, or just be able to be a part of that. And so they don't want to be dragged down by the lower parses. So to get to that tier, you just have to beat your head against the wall. I'm shortcutting it with money, Brian, because and here's what I noticed, and this is right off the bat. So I ran with those guys initially, right?
Yeah.
And I had issues with Ilya. Within two runs, they were able to identify what I was doing wrong, and they immediately corrected it, and we beat the run. Because they've done it so many times, they were able to fix me.
Yeah, you hired tutors.
I did, and they just got me right through it without even and it was funny. So I had a buddy because we were talking about this deal, and I was like, hey, I want you to go in. You're gonna get your clear. Let me know what you think of that experience versus the static experience that we have both been dealing with between all these trials. And he went in with it, and he was like, it was so weird. They knew exactly what they were doing. Within 3 runs, they told me what I did wrong. It was an easy fix. I beat the run. I don't know what they were doing that we're different. And I asked them, and they said they beat it for 10. They just beat the same dungeon 10 hours a day until they had it at that point. They had it at that tier. And I can't find a group that wants to run something that many times unless they're getting loot.
Well, loot and probably a paycheck, because it's like when you talk about 10 hours, it's like that's a job. Like,
yeah.
Oh, you did a full-time work week this week in a game? Gregory writes, is gray a catch-all for bad play, or is there a category that's lower than gray?
No, gray is the lowest you'll go. So the way the parsing works, it's not a like, oh, below 25, you're automatically be a gray. What a parsing does is it takes everyone who's ever uploaded a parse. So you might have a ninja who only has 2,000 parses versus a dancer who has 7,000 parses. A more popular job is going to have a more difficult time getting into a parse. And what it does is it takes all of those, let's say dancer, 7,000 parses, and then grades them by orange, purple, blue, green, gray. And it goes all the way down in that manner. And so it basically takes it into those tiers. And then based on where you place among those 7,000 players, you place into those tiers. And what happens is you may start the tier out as a blue or purple, but as the tier goes on,
as more data gets,
there's more data. And what's going to happen is all those top end players, those guys who are running it 10 hours a day, they're now changing jobs. They're now swapping around, learning every job, and they're getting their parses up into the purple and the blue and the oranges because they're spending 10 hours a day in each job in every instance, and they're just pushing parses down. So if you're not a 10-hour-a-day player, you eventually start, well, I was an orange, now I'm a purple, now I'm a blue, now I'm a green. I better go do more parsing to get back up there. It's not a simple, got this number, I'm automatically this, which is why I was saying people don't realize sometimes when I was doing Dancer, I was gray for the longest time. And when I got blue, I skipped green because it was only 100 DPS difference.
Yeah. That's cool, though.
I skipped it.
But that felt good.
No, it did. But what I'm saying is, like, that's like, it's so weird because it just takes all the players who have done it. So, yeah, Samurai has high numbers, so get good. I hate to say that, but if you want an orange, it's up there. Way up there.
Moopy says, can you pay specifically for people to up your parse?
Apparently, and basically so a parse run is actually, and this makes it even worse, Brian. So you can do a parse run versus a normal run. If I'm going to do a parse run, the way that works is simple. I'm going to get on my machinist, and we're going to have an astrologian. We're going to have a dancer. We're going to have a bard. Every buff that we can get is going on me. My parse is now going to be abnormally high. That's a parse run. So you need to be BIS, have a parse run, and that's how you're going to start bringing your parse up. But you can't get into those groups until you beat everything, got BIS, which you can't get because you're not getting into the groups, and you can't get into parse runs unless you're in a group that cares about a parse run.
So Spencer writes, how do you guys feel about parse farm parties, and do they usually work for you? I'm going to jump in on my answers that I haven't taken advantage of any of that because essentially just as my content, it tends to be that I'm leveling up the different jobs. And so I haven't, I did some of the raids back when they came out, and then I got really busy. My son was born. Like, this also impacted my Destiny, my Destiny career, and so it's like out of that, like, there's been a lot of life events that it's like, yeah, okay. So for me, like, from a content perspective, the number one question I get is, hey, can you make a controller guide for this job? And I put a lot of time into those controller guides because I want to make sure I know how it feels. And I'm actually reworking some of them to try to account for a little bit more mobility. But so like those things take time. That's what people are looking for me from. And like while I've cleared, to Tanya, during launch, like I went and did that, and I had a great time working with the crew on that piece. We weren't necessarily worried about parsing. We parsed those fights just so I could see if I was improving. And I think that there's a real value, and I continue, even despite this conversation, to advocate that I wish the game would give this to me natively on an individual level so I could see how I'm doing and then rate me against myself. Like, did I do better? Did I miss a rotation? Did I get hit by something unnecessary? Like, there's so much data that I wish I could have that third parties like FF logs and stuff are basically filling in that gap, and then the community is essentially acquiescing to them. And I mean, it's a gray area for sure. But what are your thoughts on that question?
Actually, on that question,
please go ahead.
Well, because we had a follow-up right over here that actually corrects something that I wasn't stating.
Yeah.
So Bizu in the chat states that party buffs don't affect parse runs anymore. And that is something I actually forgot to mention, because at the level that I'm at, people don't care about the RDPS.
Right. So for anybody who doesn't know, you have your DPS, which it counts for like other people's buffs because there are utility. And then you have the RDPS, which is basically the real DPS, what you did that was not buffeted by from an outside source. Yeah.
And so what ends up happening, and I've had this happen 3 times total, is the people that benefit from our DPS will argue with the people who are benefiting from regular DPS, unless you're at that super high tier where you realize our DPS is what matters. Mm-hmm. Like, they literally argue, well, here's my DPS. And then the RDPS guy, normally a ninja, will be like, yeah, but here's what you really did. And then they'll go back and forth. And I've seen it happen 3 times in those crappy party finder groups where they're arguing about the DPS, who did better based on our DPS versus I think it's categorized as ADPS. Mm-hmm. I can pull it up and look, but yeah, it's got its own category. The original DPS and that RDPS is the correction to get rid of those party buffs, but there's still people who use that party buff as a way to go, look what I did. I had a white mage jump in a while ago. A guy that I used to run with a lot jumped in and goes, look at my orange DPS on my white mage. And he's like, yeah, we party buffed that. Like that's still stuff people do.
What would be really cool, really interested in your thoughts and chat's thoughts on this, is that if ADPS actually gave the DPS to the person who created the buff.
That's what our DPS is. Our DPS does all those corrections. It removes the party buffs, puts them back where they should be. Okay. So that you can look at what your
I thought it was just stripping it out as a filter, meaning that nobody gets the points.
No, our DPS is it gets rid of all of that. And from what I was told, I don't know how true this is. I got a guy in one of the groups who supposedly was super into balance, which is where all these discussions happen. Mm-hmm. He said that our DPS was created at the beginning of the tier because dancers were parsing so low, nobody wanted to bring them. But what people don't realize is the amount of our DPS dancer brings, all the buffs they bring. That's what you're looking for. So it was created at that point is what he told me.
Yeah, whether or not we made a video like, how do you rate utility? Like, how are you going to rate it? So that sounds like RDPS.
And that's exactly it. Because when I started the tier up way back at 1, I was Bard. And I still had the Stormblood rotation, which was horrendous. And we talked about it, and I decided I'd go Dancer. And I went over to Dancer, and I'm like, wow, the DPS is stupid low. And that's when I learned all about our DPS. So I think it's too new for it to be a big thing. Oh, yeah, no, Dancer's stupid low now. Way back when I swapped over to Dancer, it was higher than Bard. Not anymore. But that's another discussion in itself. But yeah, our DPS does get rid of the party buffs, but I'm just saying in general, the amount of argument over parsing, over buffs, over things like this is ridiculous. Yeah. But at the end of the day, if you can clear the content, you're not hitting enrage, that should be the important thing. And as a team, as a group, people you're working with, your regular team, that's what you should be improving upon.
Yeah.
That's always been my philosophy with statics. And this new mentality of like the parse being high enough, and please already have a high parse, already know the mechanics that we want to run. We're not going to teach you any of that. So if you can't get it down in the first run, get out of my group. Like, I feel like almost people are looking for carries. Like the people making the group, and I mean, this is not everyone. I'm stating that now before I get 1,000
generalization. Benny.
A lot of the party finder groups that I would find, the expectation was that I would already be able to do blue and their strategies with no issues at all out the gate. And I would look up their because I mean, if you're going to check my logs, I'm going to check yours, and they're parsing gray. So I almost feel like they're looking for what I'm looking for, but they want to put together the group. So they just want to get all the people that are high tier.
Right. Because if I can, well, it's that whole Black Mirror thing. It's like if I get a bunch of 5 stars with me and I'm a 3-star, maybe they'll move me up to a 4-star, and then I can lord it over everybody. I do want to,
and which is what I've just done. I hired 7 co-hosts who are going to teach me T, and they're the 5 stars, and I'm the half of a 1-star.
It's honestly,
I'm hoping at
the
end, Brian, I'm like a 2.5.
There you go. Best of luck to you on that one. I'm looking forward to watching those streams because it'll be fun regardless. It's like, hey, watch me learn. I mean, those are learning streams. You know, you have these guys as co-hosts teaching you how to play. Gregory writes, and I want to have this as kind of a final thought, and before we wrap up the podcast, he says, wouldn't it still indicate that you were a better player because you were good at aligning your skills with burst windows and the concept of RDPS? Somebody buffs you, and now you're aligning your skills to increase the overall damage output. And my thought is that I think that's something that the game should absolutely do. It should absolutely break down those kind of stats to deliver that kind of information to you. How effective were you during a burst period? How effective were you during these things? Like, did you, like, if they could feed you that kind of information, I think either like that could take some of the mid-core players and educate them so that they're like, oh my gosh, I never thought of like doing this thing. Because at the end of the day, like, sure, what probably separates a mid-core from a hardcore is somebody who's willing to go outside and do outside research of the game and to try and improve, as opposed to using exactly what's in the game currently to improve. And so that's just my take. It's like, I think that there should be some credit, especially in terms of aligning your burst period to when you are buffed up to be stronger. But I think that's still a function that the game doesn't do that it should. And while, as long as we rely on outside sources, it's going, well, it probably is never going to be perfect, but it's going to be the best form of imperfection as possible. Benny, what's your thoughts?
The burst window I agree with, because I remember one group hit me up and they recruited me even though the parse was low because I didn't get any damage downs. So looking at burst windows and lineups and things like that, people do look at a lot of times as a way to judge an actual player, regardless of the DPS. Oh, you didn't get damage downs? Oh, you did this? That means you can do mechanics. So if you can do mechanics, we can work on DPS. Some groups will do that. Those groups just, in current experience, have all fallen apart, or they wanted me to learn something else. And once they would like, oh, you didn't have any issues, so let's change up everything you know. Right. Like, no, I have no issues with that run. That run right there. Like, I can do Aotori, Uptime Mirrors. If you're going to change that shit, I'm lost.
All right, guys. Be sure to follow Benny over on all the social medias. Links are in the description to his channels. Follow him on Twitter. Be sure to check out his incredibly entertaining Twitch streams over on Comicstorian Gaming. All things Comicstorian Gaming now. Thank you, Benny, so much for taking time to share the story and to have this great, amazing conversation. I'm sure we're going to be doing a couple more collabs. We've got a couple of videos that we're like, man, we need to sit down and talk about this. But you're working on a couple of videos. Is there anything you want to plug or share?
The first attempt at the hired co-host team, which is how I'm wording it to make it
the hired co-host team.
The hired co-host team is Thursday night. If you guys want to check it out, that's the scheduled one. It might not line up like we're intending, but that's what we're aiming for. So. Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you.
If you want to follow up questions, that would be the time.
Yes. Go check them out. Ask them in real time. How's it going? Thank you, chat, for hanging out, making this such an engaging podcast. Thanks to all of our new subscribers. Again, we're trying to get to 1,000 here on Ginger Gaming Radio. You'll see the CrystalCore Radio Podcast, PSO Radio Podcast, Epic Blue Radio Podcast, and Mystic Light Radio Podcast, which that is actually focusing around Blue Protocol as we follow its development. Not a lot of news, so you haven't seen a lot of those podcasts. Please, sure, if you can, no pressure. If you feel like we earned your subscription, hit subscribe, hit that like button, and share this out with your friends. That would be amazing. I thank you guys all so much for the amazing support. As will always, be sure to check out Work to Game and Ginger Prime for more gaming videos and more. Benny, again, thank you for joining us. Love you, chat. Love you guys so much, and I hope you guys all have an incredible day. Take care.
Have a good one.